What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Battle Central Europe Season 3. This is going to be Game 2 of the best of 3 between Moscow 5 International and Komanda Minus. Currently, Moscow 5 int 1-0 over in this series, so we'll see if Komanda Minus can bring it to a Game 3 or if they're going to drop in a pretty fast fashion to Moscow 5 International. Here on HeflaTV Hitbox 1, we're going to be bringing you the rest of the games. I'm Mike Loris, and I'm joined by Grandis, and man, that last game was kind of disappointing from Komanda Minus, to be honest.
Yeah, disappointing is a pretty good way to put it. They just never were able to put together their team fight combination, which was crucial for their draft. It was really strong. During Qual RP, you expect to be winning the team fights, but they just missed like 3 in a row inside the mid game, and that gave Moscow 5 plenty of room to push with their Lycan and Jakiro. If Komanda Minus had like a warm-up game or something before that, maybe it would have been a different story, but they're going to start out this draft with the Brewmaster, which is a pretty solid way to start it out, but hopefully for them, it's going to transition better than what we saw in game number 1.
It's a lot harder to mess up a Brewmaster split, right? Just because you can never really miss with the split unless you just lag out or something like that. It seems like a lot more of a safer way to go than the teamfight ultimates of the previous game for Komanda Minus, which landed but didn't have much follow-up. That is, of course, a threat or a danger for this game. If Brewmaster doesn't have any backup, he is going to awkwardly jump in all by himself. But regardless, we do see the Brewmaster getting through because of an early ban on Puck Jakiro, and once again that Drow Ranger from Moscow 5. So it's going to leave quite a few powerful heroes in the pool. Up against a Brewmaster, Scarith Mage looking pretty good for M5, or they could go for an Ogre Magi, or they could go for both. They have pretty much their pick of those top tier heroes.
Yeah, I think you pretty much have like Scarth Mage, Ogre, Razor, pick 2, and that's presumably how Moscow 5 are going to open up this draft, unless they have something else in mind. And since it is a best of 3, and they won game number 1, maybe they have a pocket strategy that they want to try out, or I don't know, maybe they're just going to go with the tried and true. Who knows?
Tusk? I mean, you can't pick up both Scarith Mage and Ogre Magi if you want to pick up a Tusk, right? There's no more room. So they can only pick up one of those supports because I think after winning game number 1 like that, they're going to be feeling pretty good about themselves. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them go for, that hero just because they do love playing it and it works out most of the time.
Yeah, and I love watching it, so I'd love to see them go ahead and pick up that hero. But right now they're taking their time, and it's a Scarith Mage Faceless Void combination. After how much reserve time they ate through, this is not the opening I was expecting. It's a pretty nice combination, to be sure, but if you're going to go for it, usually it doesn't take this long to settle on that thought.
It's disappointingly vanilla. It's like they spent so long at that counter, and they're like, you know what, I'm just going to have something plain. And that's always a little bit disappointing, but you know what, this is a powerful combination, especially against a Brewmaster. Having a Chronosphere is going to, first of all, make Brewmaster's life very difficult. Second of all, make Komanda Minus's future drafting a little bit more difficult as well. Vengeful Spirit is looking pretty good here for Komanda Minus. Not only was it played pretty well last game, but also as far as keeping heroes safe from that Chronosphere, Vengeful Spirit is probably the best bet that you can pick up. So I think it's looking like a pretty clear pick for Komanda Minus in this game, unless they want to go for a different direction entirely, which is possible. But I mean, Moscow 5 clearly have an idea in mind. We're going to Chronosphere people, and then we're going to kill them in the Chronosphere with stuff like Mystic Flare, and maybe a couple of other skills down the line. So you might as well deny them that first part of landing the Chronosphere.
For sure, and maybe later on, Komanda Minus will decide to go for something like a Naga Siren or another big ultimate of their own to delay Faceless Void inside the Chronosphere, just disrupt his ability to get kills. So there is some other options for them, but I think Venge is just the safest and most reliable pick here. Even if the defensive swaps don't come out in the Chronosphere, you're still going to have some nice stuns coming out from the Venge, and that aggressive roaming potential that we saw very well executed by Komanda Minus in the early portions of game number 1 is going to be available for game number 2 as well.
Yeah, so if they do get their hands on that, then I'm sure Moscow 5 are going to have to play things a little bit more cautiously. This time they do have a hero that can inherently escape those situations with Faceless Void. Scarith Mage maybe not as lucky, but yeah, I think Komanda Minus, if they just go for a very similar early game and just try to get a couple kills here and there with the Vengeful Spirit, what a surprise, then that's probably going to be their best chance at taking any sort of mid-game scenario or any sort of game scenario at all, just because, I mean, having that much of a great start is very rarely going to screw you over. So, I mean, this is a pretty clear pick from Komanda Minus, to be honest, and if they complement Vengeful Spirit with another aggressive support hero, i.e. Ogre Magi, still available to them, then yeah, getting a lot of pressure, getting a lot of dominance on the map, you could shut down a Faceless Void and delay the Chronosphere and then delay the threat of right clicks in that Chronosphere. And as soon as you get those delays going, then they just keep on piling up.
Tide Hunter, the ban, coming out from Komanda minus, taking away another big teamfight ultimate away from Moscow 5 that could combo well with presumably the supports that they're going to pick up. It's an understandable ban, but this draft, it should be progressing fairly quickly, at least after this banning stage, as both teams are already below 30 seconds of the reserve time.
You usually don't see teams with this low amount of time at this stage in the draft. I mean, maybe your first pick is going to take you a little bit longer, but generally it's not going to be too much to interfere with. And well, we see Slaughter once again being banned out. This is honestly kind of disappointing. Moscow 5 have such a great read on Komanda minus, and the heroes that they do like to run, there's going to be no massive minus armor strategy, and honestly I wouldn't be surprised to see Elder Titan being banned out again in the second banning phase from Moscow 5.
Yeah, I really wouldn't either. If they're more scared of the Orc Magi, that could also be an option, but still. Moscow 5 have first pick coming out from the second banning stage, and Ogre's taken away from Komanda minus, as that would have been a really nice pick for them as well, just the additional burst damage and then Bloodlust on Faceless Void. It's really nice synergy with their other two picks. As for Moscow 5's ban, you've already mentioned the Elder Titan, other supports that might work for Komanda minus. We do have like an Earthshaker available on top of it, although he's not the most conventional of supports to take away. Could be nice for them, just add another disruptive tool inside the team fights. Moscow 5 ban out the Razor, leaving the Elder Titan available, and we'll have to see where they're going to take this draft. They could go in, honestly, a lot of different directions. Even if they don't get any more synergy with that Chronosphere, it doesn't really matter, since Faceless Void himself does a lot of damage, and then Mystic Flare is usually good enough. They're going to go for a Lich.
Yeah, so it's going to be a very safe pickup now for Moscow 5. Going to completely dissuade Komanda minus from going for that Elder Titan, or at least they're going to try to do so. It still might be that pickup in the future, but Ice Armor is pretty good against Natural Order. It's one of the few counters, I would say, that Natural Order has. Komanda minus, their support choice should be pretty much just supports with disables, as they are up against Faceless Void, and they already have a Brewmaster who's a little bit disable light, so getting a stun, getting a silence is going to be a little bit of a higher priority for them. Whereas for Moscow 5, they already have a lot of damage to dump into that Chronosphere just with their support picks alone, so they don't really have to be prioritizing, synergy with the Chronosphere any longer. Of course, it will be nice if they could pick up a hero that does do that, but they don't have to, just because Faceless Void, if he does land a Chronosphere onto 2 or 3, well, Chain Frost is going to make short work of them, and Komanda minus take a very early Lycan, or a relatively early Lycan. It's going to maybe be them giving Moscow 5 a taste of their own medicine.
Yeah, we'll just have to see how it's going to work out for them. The pushing power with Vengeful Spirit as well as Lycanthrope is pretty significant as well, and both teams have some decent teamfight ultimates to spend. If Moscow 5 don't connect with some really nice Chronospheres, we could be seeing Komanda minus returning the favor that we saw in game number 1, where they're just able to push down those towers. Although we're not going to be seeing a Jakiro this game from both sides, as it was banned out in the first stage. Komanda minus, they don't really need that extra pushing power. Lycanthrope generally is enough. And, well, I think they need to look for picks that are going to buckle down their team fight as well. For Moscow 5, it's going to be Necrophos.
I really like this pick. It's, first of all, a hero that warps the game, and someone like a Brewmaster or Lycan can't really feel too comfortable dropping low in their attempt to do whatever objective it may be, whether it's, get a little bit more damage on a Scarith Mage or push a tower as Lycan. You have to respect that Scythe. So, Necrophos is going to be able to do that, plus he will be able to put damage into the Chronosphere. Maybe not the most burst damage, maybe not the most impressive, but as far as core heroes go, he does do that. And also, what was the last one? There's one more. I forgot the last one, but that's fine, because Necrophos is still going to be a pretty good pick in this scenario. Yeah, he will also be able to, right-click and deal with the Faceless Void's Chronosphere because he's ranged. I think that was the last one, although that kind of just sounds like what I just said. Enough about that. Necrophos is going to be solid, and Komanda minus, well, their pick is going to be the Visage, and this is a hero that we don't really see too often without being partnered up with the Drow Ranger, yet it will still be able to put a lot of pressure onto the Moscow 5 side. A magic missile into a couple of right clicks with the help of a Lycan Howl, and then suddenly Soul Assumption is going to be hitting for max damage, and if you look at Moscow 5's heroes, they're all pretty soft, so magic damage is going to be the best way to go for Komanda minus.
Yeah, even though it isn't a Drow Ranger in the damage, if you're not going to see Visage paired with the Drow, Lycanthrope comes as a close second because of how damage on familiar is. It's not as great as the Precision Aura, but it is available more often, and you're able to still get a pretty decent chunk out of the damage. That extra 20 on familiars gets a lot of usage, especially under these squishy supports like Scarth, Mage, and Lich. They could end up being soloed by birds, especially if an Aghanim Scepter ever comes out for the Visage. Could be really scary for them, and I like the choice to go for this Visage. I don't think there's really any supports that are better left in the pool.
Yeah, so Moscow 5, they can pick up someone like a Bristleback if they really are scared of those birds, and in all honesty, it won't actually be a terrible pick here, but we do see a Zeus being banned out from by Komanda minus rather, just because most of the Komanda minus heroes are more on the soft side. Moscow 5, they're going to pick up the Invoker as their last pick, yet another hero to just dump damage into that Chronosphere, and assuming the Faceless Void gets any sort of farm at all, if he's not completely shut down by a roaming Vengeful Spirit Visage, then this is going to be very dangerous for the Komanda minus side, and maybe they don't even have to do that. Maybe they could even go for a Wex Invoker. What do you think about that in this game?
Not the biggest fan of Wex Invoker. It's nice up against the Brewmaster, but I think when you have the Faceless Void as well, it's just too good to pass up the Sunstrike and Meteors inside the Chrono. I don't know, to each his own. It wouldn't be the worst choice, but I favor the Exhort Invoker this game. For Command Minus, it's going to be a Viper.
Yeah, I think the Exhort Invoker is probably the better way to go in this game as well. So Viper for the last pick of Command and Minus, just going to add a little bit more lane control to their lanes. Like in Brewmaster, can handle a lane, but I don't know, Moscow 5 have a lot of poking power just because they have 4 ranged heroes. So no matter what the laning situation is, the Brewmaster Lycan probably going to get poked a little bit. So you want to have someone who can poke back in those lanes. And well, Viper might actually be taking Visage and Vengeful with him up towards the top lane and trying to be playing a little bit aggressively. Faceless Void is not that great when you compare him to a Viper, and Visage is a tri-lane king. So even though they might be up against Sunstrikes, this is probably Komanda Minus's best bet at taking an early game lead. And of course, they could always roam around with Venge and Visage if need be, but hell, if you're always in a 3v3 situation, then the kills are right there. You don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, and that would probably benefit the other heroes as well. Lycanthrope 1v1 versus the Faceless Void should be able to farm Brewmaster versus the Invoker or vice versa. Should be serviceable matchups, and then you do have that X Factor rotations. On the Radiant side, we are going to have Command and Minus. Currently, it looks like they're going to send the Brewmaster towards the off lane, played by Hawkeye. Mid lane, Viper, played by Insolent. He is going to be handling that hero. In the bottom tri lane, Kikoni on the Lycanthrope, Pure Evil on the Visage, and Poison on the Vengeful Spirit.
And on the Moscow 5 international side, we have Bignum currently heading to the bottom lane as the Faceless Void, being supported for now by PGG's Lich. Necroman is going to be handling the mid lane Invoker, and he is going to go for Exhort. Screen is going to be playing the Scarith Mage, and ZXC is going to be joining him as the Necrophos. So maybe just pure dual lanes from Moscow 5 once again. And well, Bignum may be getting a little bit of help from the Lich. I don't expect the Lich to be participating too much in this lane, mostly because he can't do much to help out. This Vengeful Spirit and Visage combination is brutal, and I expect them to lock down the Faceless Void pretty hard, and even if that doesn't necessarily happen, just Viper by himself will be able to lock down the Faceless Void. So this is once again looking like a game where Pure Evil and Poison are going to have many opportunities to leave the lane and not worry about the hero that they're leaving behind.
Yeah, definitely. Even though the constant deny coming out from the Lich is going to be annoying and help out the Faceless Void getting some farm in this lane just by pulling the creepy Equilibrium closer to his tower, it still isn't going to be a very happy time for him. And Poison, they're going to bump into Bignum. He's sitting on the early rune and ends up taking a lot of damage. Regeneration rune picked up by Bignum, instantly cancelled. They shouldn't be able to get this kill because of Time Walk, and there you go, up to the high ground with him. But it is going to be Faceless Void, forced to eat through at least 2, maybe 3 of his tangos.
Yeah, it's not like he has a shortage of tango, so it's not going to bother him too much. In fact, it's probably going to cost Poison a little bit more, seeing as though he only has 1 clarity, whereas Faceless Void has 7 tangos. So it's just a small display of the power of the Vengeful Spirit Visage combination. They didn't use any skills from the Visage. That was just a couple of right clicks here and there. And Bignum, though he does have a Stout Shield, once this Howl comes up and once a couple more skills are thrown out, then it's probably not going to be Faceless Void with the best of times. Already Insolent is starting to apply that pressure. So Poison and Pure Evil, I don't expect them to stick on this lane for very long, and they should be looking to rotate out and help the other lanes. Kikoni, especially up against the Invoker, is most likely going to need that help. Necroman versus Lycan is a lane that starts out okay for Lycan, but gets worse and worse as time progresses onwards, especially with PGG helping.
Yeah, the Lich has settled towards this middle lane, and it's probably not going to get any kills onto the Lycanthrope, but he's not going to have a fun time, as you said. Just the Frostblast spam, constant denies, it's going to be annoying, and Brewmaster up top, the last matchup in this game versus the dual lane coming out from Moscow 5, also not going to be dating that much, but since it is a dual lane, Brewmaster should be able to get some levels, but just the constant Ras coming out from screen, dumping a full mana pool into him is going to force Hawkeye through the majority of his regen, loading out with a little bit less than Bignum.
Well, screen actually doesn't have any clarities or anything like that, so Brewmaster using his salve, and now he doesn't have to worry about that much more magic damage coming into him. Obviously, it's going to be constantly spammed at him pretty much no matter what, but for the most part, he has gotten through the worst part of the lane. But, you know, as Necrophos gets a couple levels here and there, Necrophos will be more and more self-sustained. He will need the Skywrath Mage less, and therefore, the Brewmaster is going to take slow tick damage from the Necrophos, who currently doesn't have a point yet of the Heartstopper aura, but I'm sure that's going to be coming out eventually. Poison and PGG, once again, getting into a fist fight, and Vengeful Spirit is actually taking quite a bit of damage from this Lich. Now going to turn things around. Is there a Howl? Not for another 26 seconds. Poison does not have boots, and PGG does. And it looks like PGG is going to back off. Doesn't know exactly if anyone is going to be coming in, so he plays it safe, and he still puts a lot of damage onto the Venge and forces out a salve.
Yeah, if he had enough mana for another Frostblast, maybe that's our first blood, but still, beneficial trade for PGG. He's just going to chill and get one creep out of this wave and probably just continuously sit in mid, almost level 3 into the Lich. And once that happens, the Frostblast is going to be even more annoying for Lycan to deal with. Even with the Lich denying, he's still doing pretty decently in lane, 9 and 3 compared to 13 and 4 of Necroman. It's definitely serviceable, and having the extra Wolf inside the lane for damage at this point is enough to keep him inside the contention of the lane, but once Invoker gets a couple more levels up, especially a couple more into Exhort, Necroman should be able to control this very effectively, even without the Lich's support.
Top lane, Sunstrike going to barely miss onto Hawkeye, and he will barely survive because of that. Zixi and Screen going to put a little bit of chip damage onto Poison, but Hawkeye's really got to be careful. If nothing else, that Sunstrike served as a reminder that yes, there is an Invoker on the field, and yes, he does have a Sunstrike available. He doesn't have the most setup. Skywrath Mage slow, Lich slow is nice, but it's certainly no Magic Missile or anything like that. So the odds of Sunstrikes landing this early on are very unlikely, but he doesn't really need to land the Sunstrikes just because the lanes are going so well. Bignum's getting a little bit of experience in the bottom lane, and the Chronosphere is going to be the lockdown that the Invoker needs to get those kills. But again, Necroman is doing just fine in the middle lane. The side lanes are doing fine. As long as they just don't end up dying or don't end up, you know, getting completely wiped off the face of the earth with like a 5-for-0 exchange, then Moscow 5 are going to be fine to stay the course, because Necroman is farming for a Midas, and Kikoni is nowhere near that, it seems.
Yeah, and I doubt it's going to be any sort of Midas build coming out from him. Vladimir's offering would be wonderful, but currently it's just the bottle for him, not even boots of any sort on Kikoni. And he'll be able to get up a little bit of farm inside the jungle, but pretty much conceding away this lane. Rotation in from Bignum might be the end of his life, but it's the Lich instead, pursued by the Visage as well as the Viper, juking through the trees for all he's worth, trying for a TP out. PGG is going to live as they just can't fight him. Faceless Void, not going to kill off Kikoni. The Sunstrike misses, but still pursuing him. Gets a bash and one more auto attack. The bottle up coming out from Kikoni is going to keep him alive for a little bit longer, and the Tango might be enough to keep him alive, and Bignum is going to have to stop pursuing. So both teams escaping barely the first blood attempt.
Man, that Lich just getting out of there because Insolent pretty much guessed wrong. There are like 2 nooks in these trees that you could check, and well, Insolent decided to check the wrong one. Poison attack and level 1 Nether Toxin, a pretty aggressively slanted build from Insolent, but just falling short at killing off a random support. Yeah, the Lich starting off with boots, so far benefiting him twice, and first the chase down of the Vengeful Spirit, now getting away from Insolent, and he's doing still pretty okay. And Bignum, he's level 3, he's going to rejoin this lane, but Insolent, he's level 5. The Viper's getting strong to a point where Moscow 5 can no longer leave heroes by themselves down here, so they're going to have to rotate a couple heroes if they want to farm the lane. Getting a kill on the Viper, you need at least one more hero on top of that, so this bottom lane's a problem for Moscow 5 for sure, but it's kind of the same exact scenario up on top lane and over towards mid, where Necroman is going 1 versus 0, and top lane, ZXE, for the most part, is going 2 versus 0, so this laning stage for Komanda Minus is certainly not as impressive as the last game, as they have yet to really poke with any sort of aggression towards the other lanes.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty surprised that some support isn't at least soaking experience in mid up against Necroman. You're probably not going to be able to farm, but at least get something out of that lane, especially for a Visage that really doesn't accomplish much unless you have innate killing potential on your other heroes. until you get level 6, and getting that faster would be wonderful for Komanda Minus, and I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. But now Lycanthrope is going to show his face back into the lane. However, he's a level 6 Lycanthrope versus Invoker with the Lich, so he needs to be very careful, as if there's a Frost Blast and Cold Snap, he could be in a lot of trouble.
And Bignum's going to come around. Cold Snap is there. He's going to shapeshift and try to get away. Stunned up a little bit. Here comes the support. Pure Evil is going to slow down Necroman first with the Wolves hot on his trail. Insolent's going to close in. Looking for a Viper Strike. Not quite going to land it. He's going to instead settle for PGG. And this Lich is almost guaranteed to fall right now. The question is, can Moscow 5 get anyone in return? It looks like the answer is no. Now Bignum is going to hit with Magic Missile, and he's going to take a Soul Assumption to the face. That's going to be 2 kills now for the Komanda Minus side after 6 minutes of nothing. All it took was for Moscow 5 to be a little bit too aggressive with a Faceless Void with the haste, and they ended up getting seriously punished. Of course, they did prompt several TPs from Komanda Minus, so it's 2 kills, but it's very expensive 2 kills, but still Komanda Minus are going to be completely okay with that.
Yeah, and now Faceless Void maybe even forced to use out his Time Walk here, but it is actually going to be top, where they find the Scythe as well as the Sunstrike onto poor Brewmaster.
Well, Brewmaster actually getting relatively close to killing off ZXC there. I mean, if things were a little bit different, maybe he could have gotten that kill if he had a hero to teleport in, but Scythe, Sunstrike, it's, I suppose, another combo. It's not something that we see every day, but it works out pretty well if you could click the Scythe on them and then Sunstrike lands and then they get hit with the Scythe damage. That's going to guarantee kills, especially once the Sunstrike is maxed out and once the Scythe is maxed out. That's very hard to survive.
It definitely is, and even now, that's 287 pure damage, which is almost enough to chunk down these heroes low. And if you have a Death Pulse, a couple auto attacks on top of it, it's almost an instant kill if there's just anything to add with that combination of just the Sunstrike and the Scythe. We'll just have to see. Up and top, however, they're going to be pursuing ZXC, but they don't have any way to bridge the gap and don't connect with the Magic Missile or anything of the sort, so he'll be fine.
And it's kind of what Komanda Minus need to do in this scenario. You see a Necrophos free farming, you have to go and shut him down. They're going to land the stun eventually and prompt a TP, but this could be cancelled, and it will be cancelled because their Necrophos really isn't in any danger. Now here comes Screen from the side, is packing quite a bit of mana, and he doesn't have a Mystic Flare though, so maybe everyone is going to survive up on the top lane for Komanda Minus, but it just seems like they're playing this so extremely passively, and to what end? Getting Lycan a little bit of farm here and there, but he's not even on the top of the last hit chart, and even if he was, it would be mostly jungle creeps. Viper's doing okay, but do you really want to pin all your hopes on a late game Viper when the enemy Necrophos is getting a lot of farm as well? That means Aghanim Scepter is eventually going to come up, and even if it doesn't come up for a very long time, the threat of Scythe and being down for like a minute and a half is just too real to put all your hopes into one hero like this. So Komanda Minus, they really have to step up and do something right now, else they're just going to get swallowed up in the late game.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, and eventually they're going to have to deal with the Faceless Void that has farm as well. They're pursuing the Brewmaster up top. Can't connect with anything, but if they get the silence onto him, could be problematic, and Guts of Shot's going to land on the Hawkeye, still pursuing him. They will drop a Sunstrike onto Hawkeye, and they will get that kill, but the Faceless Void dies in bottom. Cold Snap getting enraged by Necroman, and now continuously pursuing him. The uphill misses twice in a row is going to mean that Hawkeye is able to walk out of this pretty easily, and with the Vengeful Spirit, maybe he's even able to survive an Arcane Bolt. They just need a little bit more damage, and Screen's going to dive that tower as the rest of the team goes for poison. They will kill off the Brewmaster, as Skyth Mage is able to clean up that kill, as Vengeful Spirit does make it out towards the south.
It does turn out to be a 1-for-1 trade. Faceless Void holding Time Walk for a little bit too long and ended up getting struck by the Viper, and then Time Walk down to the low ground, but he was still in Soul Assumption range, so that level 3 skill did quite a bit of damage in that regard. Yet Moscow 5 do still make a decent trade on the Brewmaster, and Faceless Void for Brewmaster, not exactly the worst, although it did take Moscow 5 a lot more heroes to kill off the Brewmaster. For the most part, it's going to be even. Yet Hawkeye is still getting his levels up. He needs level 6. Then maybe he's going to be able to contribute something to his team, but so far this Brewmaster has been kind of dead weight, and honestly that's kind of par for the course for offlane Brewmasters. It's very rare to see them doing well.
Yeah. Viper's build this game. Insolent's going to go for Treads Drums Aquila. Angling towards a fairly aggressive early start. Maybe it'll work out with the first split up and top. They'll be able to boulder toss up PGG and continuously pursue. He's getting healed up by the Necrophos a little bit, but now that Cyclone's going to put an end to that. Perch down to the ground, Magic Missile. Now with the Viper damage, he should be able to get this kill. Lich Chain Frost going to bounce mostly to creeps after hitting poison once. It'll attack the Viper again and now into Hawkeye, but still not enough damage to save them. PGG going to be eaten apart by that Viper with one more auto attack with that Nether Toxin. In the meantime, Lycanthrope gets a kill onto the Faceless Void with no help at all. Now going into Necroman, no crits means no kill onto the Invoker, but still a big win for Komanda Minus after the longest of times of passivity.
That's 3 kills around the map, looking to make it 4. A screen up on top is going to get dove. Very easily done by Komanda Minus up on the top lane, and this Viper coming in with level 4 poison attack is very rarely seen, especially against a Lich, Scarith Mage, Necrophos. You would kind of expect him to be packing a more defensive build with Corrosive Skin, but because he was up against the Faceless Void, his poison attack slowed down the Lich so much and was able to get those kills a lot easier than really expected. It's now 7-2, and Komanda Minus looking suddenly very good in this game. It's going to put the Viper and the Lycanthrope on top of the net worth chart, and though the rest of the heroes aren't that close in comparison, a very similar thing is going on for Moscow 5, where the Invoker's on top with the Hand of Midas, Necrophos not too far behind, but the rest of the heroes, they're just at the bottom. Bignum is not getting any farm at all. In fact, he has 3 deaths. He's doing a lot worse than the Brewmaster.
Yeah, and the Chronosphere hasn't really netted them anything at all, and the tools are coming out for Komanda Minus, even though their supports don't have very much either. The Visage has a medallion as well as boots, level 7 now, which is pretty much all that the Visage really needs. And although the bench is pretty much dirt poor, all she really is going to be contributing to the fight, even if she had farm, is the Magic Missile and eventual swap coming out from Poison. So they're doing just fine. Whereas Moscow 5, they haven't been able to put together their combination. But down in bottom, Viper Strike, they found Faceless Void. He's going to Chronosphere and make a turn for pure evil. With the Mystic Flare as well as the Sunstrike, they're going to drop a load. One more odd attack from Bignum is going to do him in. But with the Poison attack slows onto Bignum, after using a Time Lock previously, he's going to be chased down. But the Cold Snap onto Insolent. Insolent's going to be stunned out as the Visage Familiars kill off the Faceless Void. Insolent's able to run away and now potentially make a turn if they pursue any further. 1-for-1 trade down in bottom.
And that's again a support for a core, so it's going to be perfectly fine for Komanda Minus to take those trades. They're going to now try to go for PGG up towards top, but it's Lich's boots not going to keep him safe because he turns around for a Frost Blast. Now the split from the Brewmaster, and PGG doesn't have any way of escaping. He's going to be brought down. I thought he was safe if he just kept running straight, but it seemed like that Frost Blast ended up getting him killed. At least that's what it seems like. It might not have actually shaped up like that, but who knows? It's still going to be the Lich going down, and it's still going to be Brewmaster getting yet another kill for himself. Now he's going to get Scythed, however. This will not be lethal. One more last hit, and he's going to run into a Sunstrike. So they get the kill on the Brewmaster in the end, however, not a Scythe kill, so he will be up in just another 30 seconds.
Yeah, if they Sunstriked as the Scythe was going up, maybe they would have been able to get that kill, but either way, I'm still going to be a pickoff for Moscow 5. Even though he kills the Lich beforehand, it's punished and is going to be pretty much a wash as far as the trade is concerned. Down in bottom, push continues, and there's your Lich ultimate.
It's bouncing through. It will not really hit that many heroes, although Pure Evil is getting kind of unlucky with these rolls. Still taking quite a bit of damage. Will Soul Assumption and kill off Invoker before he dies. Now Insolent dueling with Bignum. This Faceless Void is not going to win that duel as Insolent takes that kill again before he dies. Screen is going to try to teleport out here. Poison is actually all alone. Has the Brewmaster incoming. Where is the Lycan in this scenario? He is at base. He really needs to be here like right now as Hawkeye is going to charge forward. Does not have a split though. The Familiar is still scouting out PGG perfectly, and he's going to hit with a clap. Big crit from Hawkeye is going to be the death of the Lich. So far a 2-for-3 trade. Now they're going to try to go for this Necrophos. Lycan has shapeshifted, but he cannot give chase. I mean, that is on paper a slight win for Komanda Minus because they took 1 kill in advantage, but every single death that they had was after that the hero already got the kill. So the benefits that they got because of those scenarios were just so massive. And now with the Lycan in the lane, they're going to conveniently take down the tier 1 tower. Meteor gets dropped at Kikoni, but there are Familiars, and they're going to spot out Screen, put a lot of damage into him with the help of Pure Evil, looking for a Soul Assumption. Not quite going to get in range, I don't think. Pure Evil getting denied that kill, but still it will be a tower destruction, plus a free win of a team fight for Komanda Minus.
Yeah, which is great for them. And Pure Evil, it's not over yet. Going to Soul Assumption of Bignum. He time walks away, and the stomps are going to miss. So never mind about that kill. Concussive Shot lands into both the Brewmaster and the Pure Evil, and they'll follow up with the ultimate coming up from Faceless Void, Mystic Flare from the Scarith Mage. Sunstrike lands in Pure Evil. Not doing enough damage, they'll be able to turn with the birds. And now Necroman dropping low. Soul Assumption going to drop him less than half. They're going to pop drums and still pursue, but they won't be able to get that kill. Instead, change their focus towards PGG with the Familiars as well as the Wolves. They do have the stomps cooling off very shortly, but this Viper ultimate, or rather just the poison attacks, is almost enough to kill off PGG. Still not surviving, and the second bird drops are also going to fail. Swap will keep Insolent safe. Pulson also going to stun up ZXE. Now the Visage Familiars with the Howl are going to be able to do a little bit more damage, but still just a 1-for-1 trade after all is said and done.
And they're going to try to go for ZXC, but really the end result is Kikoni over towards the mid lane with a couple of illusions of himself, pushing that tower very aggressively. And though they don't take any additional towers following, they still get a lot of damage onto those towers. And well, we see a little bit of a botched team fight for Moscow 5 as they get the nice Chronosphere onto 2. that's usually going to guarantee you 1 kill straight out, but they Mystic Flare the Brewmaster, and then they Sunstrike the Visage, which is, I guess, the correct thing, as you don't want to run into that Gravekeeper's Cloak, but still, they both live after that, just because they just are barely tanky enough with the mech from the Viper in order to survive, and it costs Moscow 5 a little bit of that fight. Otherwise, they could have easily cleaned up those heroes, or at least one of them, and then been a little bit more capable in the following fight, but instead they mess it up just a little bit, and it costs them. Now, Komanda Minus, with a couple of towers to their name, they haven't lost any of them of their own, and this is starting to look a little bit like the last game. The Radiant is going to hold on to a good portion of their towers for most of the game, and this time these towers are looking a lot more healthy than in the last.
And that's kind of to be expected. Moscow 5 International's tower pushing potential is very limited. Forge Spirits from the Invoker is their best tool, but even those have been able to put very much pressure onto the enemy side of the map, and Komanda Minus are about to have all of their mid-game tools to take towers. As soon as Lycanthrope starts leveling up this Necronomicon, they also have Drums, Mech on the Viper, and they're just getting a lot of effective items for the team fights now, so it's not necessarily surprising that they're able to win them, but we'll just have to see. Moscow 5, they're grouped up, smoking, looking for a pickoff, and that pickoff might end up being onto Pure Evil if he sticks around a little bit too long. But for now, they haven't run into anybody, and Pure Evil's probably going to survive. Although his jungling's very slow, they don't even go for him. Instead of looking for wraparound on a Hawkeye, no Blink Dagger on the Brewmaster. This could be a very bad death if he doesn't buy the Blink beforehand. And they won't open up into him yet. Hawkeye going to be silenced up. Concussion shot, Arcane Bolt, Scythe, he's gone. But that's the Blink before he dies, so not a lot of gold lost, but still on the sidelines for 70 seconds.
Getting killed off by a Scythe at any stage of the game is just such a nuisance. Down for another minute and 70 seconds, as you said, and it could be a lot worse. He could have not seen that coming at all and ended up not buying his Blink Dagger, and then he still would not have had it. But now Moscow 5, they're going to try to go for a tower push. They have Forge Spirits that are decently strong on the Invoker. That's level 4 on the Exhort and Quas, so these Forge Spirits still can get a lot stronger. In the meantime, they're losing a race up on top where the Komanda Minus side have already taken their tower. Now they're going to try to go for a tier 2, and Moscow 5 fortification, they're slowly breaking through the tier 1. They will get that in the end, but now their tier 2 tower is in a little bit of trouble because the Necrobook is now up on Lycan with the Howl damage. This tower will be fortified in Moscow 5. They are closing in. They have a Chronosphere with level 3 Time Walk. If they could find an opening, they can win a team fight, but it's just Summons right now that's doing the damage, and though everything will escape, actually no, Pure Evil is going to get interrupted. Chain Frost and the Chronosphere is going to be committed, so Pure Evil is so very screwed. So Visage goes down, but again, he doesn't actually lose that much gold because this time he's the one to purchase a point booster before he dies. So as nice as it is to, I guess they get the tower deny as well. They get a tower deny and a Visage kill. That's not too bad actually for Moscow 5.
It's still map control going the way of Komanda Minus. It's not favorable for them, but it's not the end of the world either. They would have loved to have that tower destruction, but if they kill off the Faceless Void up top, no, he's going to TP out. Bigdom's completely fine. They're still able to constantly put this pressure out. Moscow 5 don't have a clear answer for it. They're smoked again, looking for pickoffs, and if this time it's the Lycanthrope, they could be in for quite a treat. The courier's going to be flying over with the Necronomicon 3, but he might die before that even gets delivered. Smoke popped, and they found Kikoni. Silenced up, he can't get off his ultimate. Now Scythe down to the ground. Sunstrike's completely off the mark, but doesn't even matter as the Scythe is going to get that kill. And he's down for 80. That's another clean pickup for Moscow 5.
Man, Scythe being amplified by Ancient Seal is absolutely brutal. I have no idea how much damage it is exactly going to do all the time, as I'm pretty sure the damage done in the recap doesn't show you, it only shows you like how much it actually took away, not how much it did. So they will be able to let ZXE get kills when the enemy is at like, you know, 2/3 HP or a little bit more than that even, just because it will do so much damage. It's insane how much that will actually do. But off of that Lycan kill, they're going to try to make a push happen in the mid lane. Here comes Insolent from the side. Viper Strike onto ZXE with double Familiar Stomps. Going to be landing onto screen. Poison's closing distance pretty quickly, looking for a swap, but Hawkeye comes in from the back with the clap split onto ZXE. This Necrophos is going to be ignored as PGG is going to be focused down. No, Necrophos will be brought down. Then they are going to go straight onto PGG, so they will get both in the end. Poison's going to be focused down by a couple of Forge Spirits. However, the Sunstrike will not miss, and the Vengeful Spirit will walk away. And Komanda Minus, they defend their tower in devastating force, as they take 2 kills, and it's a kill on the Necrophos. That's a much-needed one.
Yeah, especially since he's saving up for his Agnum Scepter, and he would have had that complete if that fight went in their favor, if he didn't die even. Almost enough gold, and now it's going to Komanda Minus going into the Roshan pit. They are down their split, so one of their ultimates is away, but just with the Familiars and the Drunken Haze, it should be a fairly sustained Roshan. I would like to see the Lycan pop his Hal, and there we go. It's going to be a lot of extra damage for pretty much everybody involved, including these familiars, which are doing quite a decent chunk. And with the medallion on top of it,
off on the side. Here comes the Chronosphere, but Roshan is a little bit too healthy, so now Bignum just has to TP out. That's the most awkward initiation. He gets swapped back. Bignum trying to go for the plays, but ends up getting punished for it. I mean, he didn't have vision of it, so I guess it was a good attempt, but it was only an attempt.
Yeah, ends up giving him away his life on top of the Roshan. It's not a very pretty picture, and even when he comes back, he's going to have Chronosphere on cooldown for 80 seconds, which is quite disastrous for Moscow 5 End. If that steal pays off, it's wonderful for them. They'll have a teamfight advantage, but if not, Komanda Minus can now go towards high ground. Sunstrike going to be fishing, lands onto maybe a handful of creeps, but that's about it.
And Kikoni's going to pop his Necro 3 with the Howl level 3 as well. This tower is going to be absolutely demolished. Look at that damage. That is disgusting. Tower is down in an instant. Now they're going to go for the melee Raxes, and I think they are capable of doing so because he said no Chronosphere. Kikoni also has the Aegis, so he's more than happy to stay on the front lines. However, Poison gets Deafening Blasted into a Mystic Flare, gets mech'd up, and he will survive. Yes, he will. Vengeful Spirit walks out, and the Raxes are brought down. That was just like, what, 3-4 seconds of hitting on the Raxes and it was brought down. That was just disturbing how fast that was for Komanda Minus. And all of a sudden, Moscow 5, they looked like they were able to, you know, keep fighting because of the scythe kills onto the likes of Brewmaster and Lycan. But just like that, they're going to lose Raxes, or a Rax.
Yeah, and that's kind of the power of lycanthrope-based pushes. Your pushing power is insane, and once you're able to find a significant pickoff or the enemy team uses an ultimate that doesn't get them kills, it's so easy for them to do that. Chronosphere is very pivotal for Moscow 5 to be able to take those fights, and Poison almost dying to a Sunstrike is going to avoid death and make its way back towards base. And after that push, it's going to be even more key items coming out for Komanda Minus, with the Agnum Scepter on the Viper, Brewmaster working presumably towards BKB for himself, Lycanthrope sitting on 2,000 gold. It's going to be really significant for them, and even their supports are starting to get up some major cashes. Visage is only 1,000 gold away from getting that scepter.
Double stomps are going to land onto the Necrophos, gets tagged with the Viper Strike as well. Shapeshift now for Kikoni with Brewmaster already in the middle of the fray. He's going to get Scythe and Chronosphere, however, it's just a one-man. Now ZXC is actually caught in the Chronosphere as well. Nice Deafening Blast Meteor combination is going to push everyone back for Komanda Minus, but still Kikoni's right on top of Necroman is going to tear into him. Now PGG, the last one to survive for Moscow 5. He's going to take a quick fall, though, as Kikoni actually runs out of Shapeshift, but it's going to be a triple kill for him regardless. It's a shame that they took down the melee Raxes beforehand because they don't have anything to take now if they do want to go for that lane push. But I think they could go down mid lane and slide to top lane if they really want to. It's going to be a 1-for-3 trade, and really that Chronosphere ended up doing a little bit more harm than good for Moscow 5. It completely killed off ZXC, and though it did get a kill on the Brewmaster, he was dead anyway because he was scythed at less than half HP with a seal on him. So botched Chronosphere, and he's going to have another chance in 90 seconds, but by that time it's going to be the entirety of mid lane down, maybe even top lane as well.
Yeah, Hal, there's your range barracks gone, and now they can make a rotation up towards top if they really feel that they want to do that. Poison is going to drop some wards, and instead they go for the more conservative choice in the tier 2 tower down in bottom. Honestly, they could backdoor it, but they don't need to. The creeps are close enough to where they could just push out one more wave and then do it in. Scarth Mage gets a tier 1 tower up top in the meantime, but it's just chicken feed for Moscow 5 International at this point. They need a lot more to get back in this game.
Yeah, they need either a lot more golden experience or they just need a perfect team fight, either of which will work. A Chronosphere onto 3 people with a Sunstrike, Deafening Blast, Meteor combination, and suddenly everyone from Komanda Minus, they're just going to be 6 feet under, especially when you have a Scythe on top of all of that. So it is certainly possible for Moscow 5 to make a significant defense here, but not without Chronosphere. It's going to be up in another 30 seconds, but by that time, I mean, this tower is going down pretty quickly. Fortification is going to slow it down. Now Meteor onto Kikoni. He doesn't give a damn because he has a Reaver and he has an Aegis. Now the Blink Clap Split onto PGG. The Lich is going to get forced staffed away. Will barely escape with his life, but it's going to be the Invoker to take focus from the Viper. Now onto ZXC. He's slowed down to a crawl. Swap backwards, and he's not even going to have time to get a Scythe out, even though it wouldn't have been lethal anyway. Double buybacks now from Moscow 5. There's no more roar from Howl, rather, from the Lycan, yet his army is still going to town on the Raxes. That's going to be Raxes down. Here comes Bignum looking for a Chronosphere. He's going to land it very nicely onto Pure Evil and Insolent. Pure Evil is going to take a fall shortly, but is that going to be enough? It doesn't seem like it will be, as Necroman buying back into this game. He's going to very quickly trying to go into the Ghost Walk, but it's not going to be enough. Bignum's stunned up, and he's going to drop Mega Kill for Insolent as K- takes the second set of Raxes and the game. Moscow 5, that is pretty much just Lycan. Lycan has been winning these games for both of these teams because of how sick the pushing power is.
Yeah, I really expect him to be banned out in the third game. It's unlikely that either team wants to play up against him after being at the receiving end of a Lycan push. Just one messed up team fight, one lost hero, one pickoff can lead you into high ground pushes, which is why that hero is so powerful and still remains a pretty good pick.
Alright guys, so Komanda Minus are going to tie up the series 1-1, forcing a Game 3 between themselves and Moscow 5 International. We'll be right back with the third and final game of the Komanda Minus Moscow 5 series in just a little bit, guys, so don't go anywhere. Game 3 is coming very shortly.